Hello, folks. Michael with the CCERP podcast team for Ecology. Today, we have the good fortune of talking to nature guide Griff Griffith, who's joining us out in California. We're like 2 hours ahead. We're ahead in the future. They're behind in time out there right now. But can you say hi? Introduce yourself to the folks.
Hello, this is Griff. I'm from Humboldt County, which is where the vast majority of the redwoods are, in Humboldt and Del Norte counties.
Cool.
And I'm here on a rainy but warm Northern California day.
Oh, and then, yeah, really quickly, folks, sorry to interrupt a little bit, but you might know Griff from some videos about a recent mountain lion sighting that was well known. I posted some on the Facebook page, and people, other people in general, will know some of the Kyle story, but a lot of people know about Griff in that regard too. But so, can you tell folks a little bit about your background and about yourself?
Well, I have been a lifelong wildlife conservationist, and I grew up in the Bay Area and wanted to get out of the city as soon as possible. So I joined the California Conservation Corps as a youth, which is a state work program for youth. And I got to do a lot of restoration. I got fire trained. And so that led to the next 13, 14 years as a seasonal while I'm going to college. So I went to college like one semester a year. And then I did all kinds of different wildlife surveys, fish surveys, bird surveys. I fought fires. I was on trail crews. I worked for Forest Service and Wildlife Conservation Society and the Nature Conservancy doing restoration, and slowly went to school, ended up creating my own bachelor's degree,
Cool.
which was a combination of international studies and plant science, and then ended up going to get a master's degree, master's in science in interpretation, natural resource interpretation. And the state budget was so bad that my advising professor said, go away and come back later. And so I got a job as a supervisor in the California Conservation Corps and absolutely loved it and stayed there for 17 years. And led crews of 18 to 25-year-olds, mostly from urban areas. And I would take them out in the woods for 8 days at a time. So we'd camp at these remote project sites.
Oh, wow, cool.
And we'd do salmon habitat restoration or prairie restoration or tree planting or firefighting or trail construction. And it was just amazing. And I just left it a year ago to get my dream job, which is one I went to college for. I love the CCC too. The CCC was a dream job, but definitely after doing that for 17, 18, I think maybe it was 18, 19 years actually. I needed a break. I was tired of sleeping on the ground. I was tired of backpacking all the time. Like everybody, I stopped backpacking and camping for fun because I did it for work.
Yeah.
And, it's just, I've been outside more than anyone I know. And so it's just time for me to stay home and have a cat. And,
Cool.
So I got this job as a nature guide for the California State Parks, and it's been interesting. So, let me back up. I'm doing quite a bit of yammering here, but when I was working for the CCC, the Corps members started wanting me to get into social media so that the pictures I took from my boss in the department, I could start making available to them. So they created a YouTube and a Facebook and a MySpace for me. And the third video I ever uploaded with us went super viral, and it was
Cool.
Me in 2013. It's called Boss Dances Like a Boss. And we were at a remote facility and we were cleaning up and I danced and we uploaded it. And I wanted to delete it because I was embarrassed about it. And so, but everybody, they were all like, oh, leave it up so our moms can see it. Because everybody's always trying to hook me up with their mom, So
Funny.
I left it up there and bam, it went viral. And at the same time, I had just gotten a gig with the EPA to work on a community education guidelines, community environmental education guidelines. And so I had this really cool connection with a really awesome group of people, Kima Price and some others. And so when an Outdoor Afro roadmap from Outdoor Afro, so that when this when this video went viral and I didn't know what to do, I had those people to advise me, and they said, this is your time to talk about your mission in life, which is to connect people with nature and wildlife conservation. And so I did, and that ended up leading to a 10-episode online show with Animal Planet called Wild Jobs.
Cool. Wow.
And and creating a dance because now I'm the dancing guy. So then I created a dance for National Geographic called the Bioblitz dance, and that went international. And Bioblitz dances started coming in. Other people's from like Romania and Africa and Siberia and all these places. And so it's just been an adventure ever since that happened. And so my platform grew, and so here I am making Facebook Lives for state parks, and some of those are going viral too, because I've tried to keep it as relevant as possible.
Cool.
So there's that.
So one day you're embarrassing yourself doing a dance, and the next day you're on Animal Planet.
Yeah, so the lesson is don't ever be so insecure that you sabotage yourself. It's like don't take yourself too seriously, because I almost deleted that. They talked me out of it, and so what a huge missed opportunity it would have been if I would let my insecurity rule the day.
True. Yeah. Wild how that works.
Mm-hmm.
So what'd you do for Animal Planet? What are some of the things that you, some of the shows, some of the things?
Well, it was based on a Dirty Jobs model, and it was just a 10-episode project that I'm hoping to do again as soon as I retire. But we would go out where people were doing jobs with animals, wild animals mostly, and I would work with them for a day. So a lot of wildlife care centers, sanctuaries, herpetological society, stuff like that. So it was super fun, like such a blast. Dream come true.
Cool. So what would you do with some of the animals?
I hung out with a alligator named Mr. Stubbs, who was getting the first reptilian prosthetic tail. And then I worked with another alligator named Pumpkin, who was raised in a little tiny cage in water her whole life, so she had like deformed bones and stuff.
Wow,
so I helped with her therapy. I fed a lot of injured and recovering animals. I released some hawks, peregrine falcons, and red-tailed hawks and gulls and squirrels back into the wild that had been rehabbed.
Cool.
I got to have a pretty amazing monkey experience where I had monkeys crawling all over me. Got to pet a skunk for a long time. Oh, just so much cool stuff. Got to hold a Asian monitor lizard, huge, very heavy monitor lizard. All kinds of this, like, I had a baboon give me a kiss, which was the most terrifying experience of my life. There was a lot of really cool experiences in that, and I really hope to get to do it again.
Cool. Nice. Interesting. Cool being around all the kind of different animals like that.
Oh yeah.
Cool. So when you were young, you were mainly in the city. Were there any experiences that got you into nature, or was it like on your own, or what?
Well, I fell in love with nature in the middle of a very urban, very paved mobile home park. And it was where my grandmother lived, and we all lived pretty urban. But she lived in this very paved mobile home park that was like right downtown. I don't know how it existed there for so long, but it's now other business properties. But and it was very white trashy, and she had this little tiny backyard that she had converted. Took out most of the lawn. My grandma was so ahead of her time. Like she was an environmentalist before the term had been coined, and she was homeless during the Depression, so she fixed everything. Like, they hunted for their food. They would leave the city and go hunting and fishing. They composted everything. She had worm bins. And she had this backyard that was full of fruits and vegetables and also a lot of plants. And she had this rule that whenever a bird planted a plant, that it was meant to be there, which was a great rule. And so she ended up having a handful of native plants in her yard always. But her backyard was an oasis in the middle of this mobile home park. It was, there was butterflies and bees and hummingbirds. And I remember as a very young child, like where I'm holding her hand as we walk down the stairs of her mobile home park porch into her backyard. And I remember noticing that grandma's backyard was different from every place in the whole world because there was so much life there.
Cool.
And I remember one time in particular, she says, "Did I ever tell you I could call toads?" I was like, no, but it doesn't surprise me because you're a magical grandma, you know, so I'm thinking. And so she does this weird ribbit sound. And then she's like, "Go look under that pot." And I go and I turn over this pot and there's a toad in there. And I pick it up and it pees on me. And she's like, "You might get warts and you might not. You have to keep watching." And I got terrible warts, but we know that's not from the toad peeing. It was like total coincidence.
Yeah.
But that made me think that toad pee created warts. And she told me it wasn't true, but I just never believed her after that because I had these warts. It was funny. But anyways, the experience of seeing a toad in the middle of the city, I knew when I was a kid that was unusual. I don't know how I knew when I was so young, but I knew that grandma's yard was special. And I looked for those things and I tried to recreate that. So like a lot of my first experiences in nature were me trying to attract it to my backyard. And that's why I'm so thrilled with kind of the movement that Doug Ptolemy has started with like homegrown national parks and people like planting native plants in their yard. It's so exciting for me because that's where it started for me, was trying to attract. I put a little pond in my backyard. I got like a paperboy job and because my parents wouldn't pay for it. Now we had this tiny little backyard in the city and I got a paperboy job and saved up for cement and dug a little pond and made a pond and went to the creeks that still existed, you know, in the city and caught, you know, all the animals out of there and put them in my pond and watched things fight it out and learned about ecology that way.
Interesting. Wow. What kind of stuff do you remember seeing and learning, and what kind of animals did you get in there?
Well, you know, I grew up in the Bay Area where we have access to a lot of greenways. So even though you're in the city, you can get to wetlands really fast.
Cool.
And so, and this is back in the 70s and 80s. So I could ride my bike, you know, 20 miles from my house. It wasn't a big deal back then. Yeah. So I would come back with a backpack full of turtles, or, you know, trying to ride my bike holding a bucket of water with stickleback and, you know, mosquito fish or alligator lizards and snakes. And I would release all these things into my backyard, my urban backyard. And so you never knew what you were going to come across in my backyard. And, you know, I didn't know what I was doing. So everything just kind of ended up in this pond. And that included, like, I'd go fishing with my grandpa and we'd bring back flounders. And I'd put those in my pond and they'd live for a few weeks because flounders are just tough like that. Mm-hmm. And I had a catfish that you could feed out of your hand. And it was just, you know, I had tons of box turtles because I'd go over people's houses, and if they had a turtle and they weren't taking good care of it, I would steal it. I was a little like criminal animal rescuer. And and no one was taking care of their turtles as well as I thought they should. So like if you had a turtle, it was probably going to get stolen eventually. And so I had this crazy backyard, and that's kind of where I started learning about animals and ecology. And I feel so bad for all those animals. Like none of them made it out alive, you know. But it's funny because I talk to other lifelong wildlife conservationists and ecologists, and they have very similar stories where like many animals sacrifice, you know, unwillingly and ignorance sacrifice their lives for my education.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot and stuff I've read too about the beginnings of great naturalists and people who are well known, and a lot of biologists and all this. Starts out kind of similar.
Yeah, starts off with a bunch of poor animals getting experimented on, you know, like I loved them and I tried to take good care of them. I just didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't have any mentors. So
it'd be very different nowadays with the mentor that's available worldwide, Dr. Google. You could ask Dr. Google to learn to lie. Oh yeah. I'm sure Google has saved many wildlife's lives. Yeah. That's cool. It's interesting. But anything else from your background you want to share about your degree or any interesting stories growing up or in college or anything?
We can loop back to them. I'm a storyteller, so I got zillions of stories. I could fill a year's worth of podcasts with stories. So don't get me started.
Cool.
Yeah. We'll loop back at the end.
Sweet. So, what do you do now? And what do you like about your job now?
So my day job is working for California State Parks, and I am the Eel River Sector Natural and Cultural Resource Interpreter. So I have many parks in my territory, and I'm the only full-time interpreter here. And so, including Sinkyone Wilderness, which is probably one of the most, like, arguably one of the most beautiful places on the planet. Like, seriously, not just saying that because I have some kind of hometown pride, but
what do you like about it? Like, why?
It's very, very rugged. It's sea bluffs. It's little tiny coves with very high biodiverse tide pools. Redwoods to the prairie, redwoods to the Doug firs to the prairies, elk everywhere, beautiful twisting creeks, awesome rock outcroppings, beautiful rolling prairies going into old growth redwoods. It's pretty incredible.
What's the name of it?
Sinkyone Wilderness, and I would recommend, it's a state wilderness. I'd recommend everybody go visit.
How do you spell it?
And then I also, Sinkyone. It's the people who lived here for thousands and thousands of years.
Okay.
Their culture's pretty much gone now. There's some people who are still Sinkyone descendants, but they were treated horribly, like many other tribes in California. Genocide and horrible. But
can you spell it again? I put it down and then spell correct, changed it to sinkhole. So it's like,
oh,
I didn't catch that. Could you spell it again? Sorry.
Sinkyone. It's like Sinky One.
Okay, there. Got it, finally. Thank you.
And then Humboldt Redwood State Parks, and then Richardson Grove State Park and Grizzly Creek Redwood State Park. So the rest of my parks are mostly redwoods. In fact, the biggest contiguous redwood forest in the planet is in my territory. So I'm probably one of the luckiest interpreters on the planet because the places that I have to interpret are incredible and very, very easy to interpret. It's very easy to be a nature guide there because people come here and they're in awe because you're in the hugest trees. Just to give you an idea for your listeners where I'm at. Do you remember the speeder chase scene in Empire Strikes Back, before they got to the Ewok village?
Some of that's so long ago. I don't know. Maybe folks out there do, but I don't know.
There's a speeder chase scene with the bad guys, the stormtroopers are like crashing into these giant trees and stuff. And that is in my park. That's literally like a mile and a half from my house.
Huh.
So,
cool.
It's, think Ewok village, and that's where I live. And it's incredible. It's very beautiful. It's very easy to be a nature guide there. Because of COVID, it's kind of changed this job up for me. So I started the job, and 2 months into it, COVID hits. And so it's been almost all virtual. But, I started a Humboldt Redwood State Park page 10 months ago.
Cool.
And it's got, 10,000 likes and 14,000 followers. And I've attracted the attention of quite a few people because I've been able to do these videos showing the beauty of the awe-inspiring landscapes that exist in these parks that really resonate with people.
Yeah, modern technology used right rocks.
Yeah.
And so, how long has there, I've heard of nature guides, but nature interpreter, when did that terminology come about?
Probably the 60s, but it's pretty insular. It's something we call it ourselves. I really don't like it because people always think it's, language interpreter. Mm-hmm. I wish we just called ourselves nature guides or cultural and natural resource guides. But it's basically when you go to a park and you get a nature talk by a ranger, that's me. Mm-hmm. So that's essentially what it is.
Nature interpreter and nature guide are basically the same thing, or is there any essential difference?
No, they're the same thing. I mean, I talk about more than just nature. I also talk quite a bit about history and cultural history, which there's pretty phenomenal history and cultural history in my sector as well.
Cool. What's the difference between a nature guide and a naturalist?
A nature guide is a naturalist who engages people on an educational level.
Okay.
So it's, a naturalist could just be someone who is, checking out nature and doing citizen science or whatever. But a nature guide is more like an educational role, I guess you could say. That's my own definition.
Okay. Cool. And what kind of history you got in your area?
Well, we have some pretty horrible indigenous, colonizer.
Unfortunately, yeah, all
Comfort,
over. Yeah.
yeah, terrible here, like
It's
among the
like, man,
worst.
just imagine if some of them Native Americans were still around. The stuff you could learn, like in my area, I freaking wish to be able to talk to people who know continuously and have maintained like the wisdom of like what this area used to be like and the animals and the plants and the ecology. That's like that would be so freaking awesome. I can't even put it into words how much I'd like that.
Well, we're
Jeez.
well. Check this out. This was one of the most. This was the highest density hunter gatherer
Huh.
per square mile in the entire planet. This area right here.
Wow.
A lot of these Native Americans didn't have words for starvation in their language,
I
and
bet. Interesting.
they didn't have history of war either. There's so many different tribes here. So where I live was the Sinkione tribe, and they're all but gone because they were massacred really early on. But the Yurok tribe, so right now where I'm sitting in Arcata, this was the boundary of the Wiyot and the Yurok tribe, both of which are still here. And
Cool.
in California state parks, there's 7 guides, and 3 of us are Yurok descendants.
Oh, you are?
And
Wow.
so,
Cool.
yeah, and so they, I'm not, but three of our team of
Okay.
7
Okay.
are.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
they're, they're full-blooded Yurok, and they are still practicing the culture. They speak the language, and they do teach us stuff all the time about what this area used to be like. And they serve as everything from fires to restoration. They're very involved with Yurok culture is still here. The Wiyot culture is still here, although they were impacted far more by colonists than the Yurok. But so we do have that in Northern California. The Yurok tribe were only contacted 150 years ago, and a lot of them were able to hide out in remote areas, and so they still have their spirituality, still have their everything. They still practice all their stuff.
Interesting.
And
cool.
So we learn a lot from them.
What are some of the things you remember that like scientists didn't know or people that they taught you?
Well, there's a bunch of stuff. I mean, we didn't know, like the colonial science, we'll call it, Western science. We didn't know what lived here, like what you were saying. And so the Yurok people have been able to tell us what lived here. And so we're reintroducing California condors to this area, primarily with the advice and the hand-holding from the Yurok tribe.
Interesting.
We're also doing a lot of salmon habitat restoration with the advice and the hand-holding of the Yurok tribe. Fires, they've been teaching us about fires, thank goodness, and we're going to bring back their ways to help us manage, because they manage California with fire. They don't call it management. They call it having a relationship with. In fact, one of my good friends who's Yurok just told me that they saw lightning strikes as the creator's footprints. And so wherever lightning struck, they would burn that area over and over and over again and create a meadow there or a prairie there. And that's how a lot of the prairies and meadows got here, is because whenever the lightning struck, they thought the creator wanted fire there. So this was a very biodiverse, beautiful place until colonizers came here and stopped the fires. And we're learning the hard way. And the Yurok are helping us now. So we're listening to them now, I should say.
So how long was fire out of the area, and when did it become reintroduced as a tool?
Right after contact. In fact, there's in the 1900s, there's papers from the Forest Service, different Forest Service supervisors saying if you see any Native Americans setting fires, shoot them. So it's probably been, it's been about 100 years, I think, since fire's been taken out. And so the fuel loads have gotten really big. So this year, there was like 4 million acres or something in California that burned, and everybody's like, there's more than that. That's more than ever. No, it's not. That's 4 million acres is how much the indigenous people burned in California. The difference between this year's 4 million acres and 150 years ago's 4 million acres is the severity. So the severity this year was intense and burnt things to the ground and killed things. Whereas 150 years ago, the fires were all very small because they did them so frequently. And so they were just like brush clearing, healthy fires. And, when you look at old pictures of California, you could see that the trees were spaced very, very far apart. Whereas now it's a dog hair thicket. You can't walk through it. But 150 years ago, you could ride side by side with with another person on a horse. So we have a lot to learn, and the Yurok people are being very helpful, and I feel like we're going to get a handle on things as long as we continue this cooperation.
And a lot of us are scared of fires. I mean, clearly fire is damaging, but so folks know a little bit, when the brush isn't cleared out, then the fire, as you say, is more intense, lasts longer, whereas when fires are kind of more regular, then it burns through, temperature doesn't get as hot, it's a lot quicker. The fire will just run through.
Less smoke.
Yeah.
Way less smoke, yeah.
So what else would you tell to folks so they know the difference between not burning an area for a long time and having these fires that go through regular? How else would you describe the difference?
Well, in California, this is a fire-adapted environment. We have pyrophilic plants that, like serotinous cones on our cypresses and our lodgepole pines and our knobcone pines, where the cones don't even open and let out their seeds unless they catch on fire. We have a lot of plants we call fire followers and pyrophytic plants. So they're basically pyrophytic means fire plant. And we have a lot of these that have been in California forever. So the fires have been here since before humans got here. And then when humans got here like 20,000 years ago or more, they saw that the fire was maintaining the Ice Age environment. So like grasslands with a diversity of different berry and potentially medicinal plants. And then they saw that with the lack of fire, as the climate started changing from Ice Age environment to what we have now, that the conifers, like Doug firs, would encroach on these prairies. And then you'd have less, back then they had Pleistocene megafauna. So you'd have less ground sloths and less camelops and less quagga and less elk and antelope. And so they knew that they needed to keep the Ice Age environment, although that's not the language they would use, of course. So they set fires to maintain these prairies, So California has, never been a wilderness. It's never been untrammeled and untouched by man. California, since the last Ice Age, has been managed by humans consistently. So, and we have done that with fire as an indigenous people, and then we stopped it when the colonizers came here. And we need to go back to that because that's what California evolved for, is to fires. And where I'm at, I live right outside the redwoods in this oak woodland, and it's being invaded by Doug firs. And in another 50 years, those Doug firs are going to shade out the oaks, and we're going to lose tons of wildlife because oaks support like over 400 species of insects, which is bird food, and butterflies and other pollinators. And also they support tons of animals just because of their structure and their acorns. And Doug firs support far, far less. And so all over California, you have Doug fir, stands replacing oak woodlands, which is a tragedy for wildlife. And fires can correct that.
Cool. Yeah.
Because
go ahead.
Oaks survive fires way better than Doug firs.
Cool. So fire is an essential, critical part of some ecosystems. Take away the fire, and you change everything, the flora and fauna.
Oh yeah, greatly reduce the biodiversity, greatly reduce it.
So some people might move to an area and think it's beautiful and they want to get rid of fire, but then if they do, then the thing they think is beautiful is no longer going to be there.
Yeah, and I've seen oak woodlands, I've seen, you could go into these Doug fir stands and see all these giant oak tree skeletons, and you can tell that this was once a grassland with huge oak trees and probably was so biodiverse. And now it's like basically this dog hair thicket of Doug firs. So they grow so close. There's the bottom's totally shaded. There's nothing growing on the ground. You don't hear anything. There's no birds. It's just like this desert. It might as well be just like a plastic desert.
Wow. Yeah. Interesting. Then I've read some things that say when some early Europeans came over, don't remember what part of the country it was, but they said that the forest, the land looked like what they would describe as an English garden.
Yeah, a park.
Yeah, very managed but wild. And there was just like
Yeah,
fruit trees and nut trees everywhere. Just so much food.
yeah. It was a type of agriculture they didn't understand. Like,
Unfortunately,
still,
yeah.
yeah, still, I think that like anthropologists, cultural anthropologists, well, maybe they're updated themselves now. I haven't really been keeping my finger on the pulse of that field, but they, what happened here was not totally hunter and gatherer. Like, you can't call these people, these indigenous groups, you can't call them hunters and gatherers, because they most definitely had a form of agriculture. It was just a very ecological based agriculture. They used fire differently. They used different amounts of fire, heating fire. They pruned. They managed bulb fields. They knew how many deer existed in their territory, how many elk existed in their territory, how many grizzly bears existed in their territory,
Cool.
how many wolves existed in their territory. Like, they knew these things, and they burnt in ways. It's like, I could go off on this, but if readers are interested in the subject, they should get the book Before the Wilderness by Kat Anderson. Before the Wilderness by Kat Anderson. It will change the way you view the outdoors. It's one of the only books I've read twice, because I don't usually read books twice. But it's I don't watch movies twice, anything like that. But this is a book I've read twice, because it's the first-hand account of a literate person coming into California. So like a Spanish or a French or a Russian, because this was actually Russian territory a long time ago. Most people don't know that. But their account of what they saw the Native Americans doing, or their accounts of the landscape, and then it'll be that, and then it'll be followed by an essay from a Native American or an ecologist explaining what the European was observing. So it's such a fascinating book.
Yeah, that's cool. I'll have to get it. Is it on Audible too, or just a book?
I don't know.
I'll look it up.
On Audible.
Yeah,
Before the Wilderness by Kat Anderson and Thomas E. Blackburn.
Cool. But yeah, let me put it. But yeah, I think since a lot of people regard farming and agriculture as being so chemical and physical and machine based, just this ecological idea is like not even on their radar, not even in their context. I know I see that too with like fitness. I'm trained in functional fitness and do a lot of stuff outdoors, and a lot of people do not get it at all. It's like, if you're going to, because the idea is like in our culture, if it's going to be fitness, it's going to be in the gym. Oh, you go to the gym, that's where you work out. And if it's not in the gym, it's not a workout. Missing the broader context of human evolution and development and what real fitness is. And not they don't realize that this thing in gyms is just a fad that came about from like the 70s. It's not the way or the best way we've become fit through our history. Just a lot of things like that, kind of similar mistaken thinking. Agriculture is chemistry. It can be ecological. I never thought of that. It's like people can't wrap their heads around it a lot of times.
Yeah, it's like the whole another analogy or example of that is like how there's vegetables and then there's organic vegetables.
Yeah,
it was like organic is like organic should be the base. It should be like vegetables and then chemically enhanced vegetables, or chemically like
true. Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, it's like
it's weird.
It's backwards. Yeah, backwards. Yeah. Or yeah, I get that too. With like shoes should be the same. I know shoes are important. We need them, but nowadays, because of the fads and social conventions, people think shoes are the norm. Without having that broader biological, ecological perspective of what a human really is. Their thinking is more social based and more short term in history. And so when I'm out in the woods barefoot, I get some people, they don't want to face the fact. They're so into their fad and their convention, their small thinking. They see me barefoot. You're crazy. It's like, yeah, who's crazy?
Yeah, No, we're animals. I know.
True.
I started referring to myself as a fire ape sometimes.
Nice. Yeah.
Because like I'll do something and I'll get mad at myself, like, oh, I overreacted or whatever, and I'll go, forgive yourself. You're a fire ape. You evolved with Pleistocene megafauna and Pleistocene predators, and so we have a overreactive alert system, and we didn't evolve for sitting in front of screens all day long and behaving ourselves to the degree that we do. And so we evolved in little clans, and we were fire apes, and this is a whole new world. And we're like, we're only the third or fourth or fifth generation really doing this. And as far as this level of technology, we're the first. And so we're going to make tons of mistakes. And I have a feeling that's why a lot of us are on drugs, either prescription or recreational, is because this is not the habitat we evolved for. So we are like in the wrong habitat, and this is like a created habitat based on greed and luxury and trying to like conquer nature. And I feel like we didn't bring the things that worked from our fire ape days. We didn't bring those things with us as much as we should have. And maybe that's what's going to happen in the next 100 years.
Hopefully,
is that we're going to bring back. I mean, the evolutionary psychology has taken off, and I think that's going to be really helpful in helping us understand why we are the way we are.
Yeah, it's interesting because some people I know that are otherwise very reasonable, they don't really know biology or ecology. They're just kind of airy-fairy, kind of sorta, and we adapt. So we adapt to things, but no, we don't adapt to anything. We live in nature, and a lot of stuff that's happening nowadays is we're maladapted to it, and that's why a lot of Americans are so sick and diseased and have all these problems. Like you're saying, we got to use the technology to be true to our nature, and do things that not try to adapt ourselves to the environment, however it may be. We got to be inside. We got to sit in a chair. No, we need to totally reevaluate it at a basic philosophical level and think, how do we adapt the world to our nature? Or how do we make a world that's proper to our ecology and nature and live in that so we can survive and thrive?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of cramming ourselves.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wish I could live to be 200 or 300 years old because I want to see what happens.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's some segments of the population that are starting to wake up to that, and some who are drifting even farther into the abyss.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I see the same thing. Interesting. But fire. And then aren't some pine trees, besides their pine cones, the way they grow, the branches are up really high so they cannot be burnt by the fire, so they're adapted specifically to that?
Yeah, they're like ponderosa pines, and I think Jeffrey pines, they do self-pruning. Mm-hmm. And so they'll actually, kill off their bottom branches and drop them. And that helps what firefighters call ladder fuel. It helps eliminate the ladder fuel, so the fire can't climb up into the tree's crown to the green part. And so that's another fire adaptation. That's another pyrophytic plant adaptation. And then redwoods are incredibly fire resilient. They have, on a big tree, you can get a foot thick bark that has very little resin or sap in it, which is unusual. And so they just don't burn. Like, it takes an extremely hot fire, crazy fire, to kill an old growth redwood forest. I don't know anywhere where it's happened. And so they're very, very, they can even get completely hollowed out by fire, by consecutive fires, several fires, and still survive, still grow. So they're incredibly fire adapted. And then also redwoods and some other conifers in California can stump sprout, which is unusual. Not very many. There's like 3 that I could think of right now: yews, the Pacific yew, and the nutmeg, and redwoods. And so they can burn and then re-sprout and regrow. So that's a pretty incredible fire adaptation too. And then we have other plants here that submit oils that encourage fires because they want to burn, because it eliminates their competition. So like creosote or chamise, excuse me.
Hmm.
So we have a lot of different kinds of fire adapted plants here, and a lot of plants that their seeds will sit dormant for 80 to 150 years, waiting for a fire to clear out everything else they could grow again and make seed, and then drop their seed and then have their seed lie dormant in the seed bed in the soil. So this is just a fire adapted place. California is always going to catch on fire, and so we have to learn how to adapt to it instead of trying to bend it to our will, which we found out does not work. We need to go with the flow.
Yeah, live with nature, not try to live against it. It's like it needs to be more in the educational system to help people get the principle that human society is in nature, nature is not in human society.
Yeah,
we live
with, way of saying it.
We live with Mama Nature's permission. Mama Nature doesn't live with our permission.
Yeah. Yep. And that is so true. And we've been learning that the hard way in California for the last 3 fire seasons.
Yeah. Well, some people have been learning. It's like experiencing and learning is different.
Yeah, that's true.
What are you learning? But so interesting that out there the Indian tribes, indigenous peoples did not fight much. Over in my area, I got to look into it more, but there's more of a record of warfare. Like when Cabeza de Vaca was shipwrecked, listening to him, it sounds like people would fall asleep. When they would sleep, they would have to keep their weapons with them in case another tribe attacked, which would happen sometimes. And it sounds like...
Yeah,
Go ahead, sorry.
There's a really interesting, I think it's the book 1491 is where it talks about this, but we're starting now to collect more evidence. There was like a civilization along the Mississippi River that ruled that area all the way into Texas, in east into the Appalachians, and maintained this structure. And that empire was devastated by European diseases before they even saw a whiteface.
Yeah.
And so just through the trade routes, that civilization collapsed. And so when Europeans went into those areas, we were in the indigenous Mad Max period. It was like an apocalypse. And so like they had lost a great deal of their mentors, their children, their structure. And so they were all kind of in this Mad Max period. And because the diseases like preceded the colonizers. And so, and that happened all the way to California. Even when the native people were contacted here, a lot of times they were in their Mad Max period where they were recovering from these diseases. And, people back then didn't know what diseases were. Like the understanding of diseases was completely foreign to how we think of it today.
Yeah.
So, in the book 1491, it talks about like how, have you ever wondered, let's start here. Have you ever wondered how North, Central, and South America were Christianized so fast? Like it happened literally overnight. And it was because the Native Americans, the native people here, many, if not most, if not all of them, believed that the diseases were from God. And so they believed that the Europeans' God was killing them. And the Europeans believed that as well because people didn't understand viruses and bacteria. Okay. So they thought it was a God thing. But Europeans had been sleeping with their animals in their house during the winter for, maybe thousands of years.
Oh, yeah.
And so we had the bird flus, we had the cow flus, we had the auric flus, we had the animal flus and the zoonotic diseases. We had the zoonotic diseases in my ancestry. And so those of us who were colonizing were the ones that were selected for disease resistance. And so what was a mild cold or whatever to us was a death sentence to the people that we colonized their lands. And that's what made it so easy to colonize, and that's what made it so easy to Christianize, was that the indigenous people, wherever the Europeans went, believed that the God was killing them. So they quickly converted to save their lives.
Interesting.
And so in this apocalyptic like stage that the Native Americans were in when the colonizers came, there was a struggle for power. So they were already like in this, they were already in this power struggle, these different tribes and stuff. And so then you introduce Europeans and you have a whole new weird, I mean, it was just like a perfect storm. What happened in the Americas was a perfect storm of guns, germs, and steel, as Jared Diamond would put it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting but sad. That's one reason I like reading the Cabeza de Vaca accounts, is because he was here before a lot of that happened. First European contact, gets to describe some of the Native Americans as they were early. It's interesting. But yeah, from him and others, sounds like there was a lot more warfare here. Food wasn't as readily available as over there. But
yeah, food is not an issue here.
So they'd eat salmon and elk, and what else would the
acorns? So acorns were their corn, their rice,
mm-hmm.
and so they basically lived inside of their orchards. And because their oaks are pretty much everywhere in California, and we have several endemic species that only grow here. And even just right outside the redwoods, even in the redwoods, we have tan oak. So there was acorns, and so like you could just live off acorns, year round pretty much.
Wow.
And during bad acorn years, there was plenty of other things to eat. And then there was amazing salmon runs back then.
Mm-hmm.
And elk and deer and rabbits and quail. So they just had tons and tons of food here. And we had over 100 different languages spoken in California. And when you look at the map of, and don't believe those maps you see on Facebook, like those are so inaccurate. Here, just in this county, I know of 10 tribes that lived just in this county, and there's probably a lot more. There's a lot more. So, like I said, I'm sitting on the territory of the Wiyot and the Yurok right here. And then, like, in a half an hour drive, I'd get to the Hupa territory and the Karuk territory and the Wailaki territory and the Sinkion territory and the Tallulah territory. So there was so many tribes here. And there's not records, in their oral traditions of warfare. They very small. Like if a Wiyot person killed a Karuk person or a Yurok person, they would have to pay. They'd have to pay for it, and maybe like give an honor of marriage to someone or something like that. It's like they didn't have big horrible warfare like what we understand happened in other parts of the United States.
Interesting. But do some people have ideas about why that was? Was it cultural, the plenty of food in the area, or like?
I think it was a combo. From what I'm learning from the Yurok people, because I work closely with them, and I have for years, and I have friends that are Yurok. They're who we know the best because they're the most vocal and intact and largest tribe in California.
How many of them are
there? But I'm not sure, but they're definitely the largest tribe.
Cool.
There's they're all over the place, and they're most of them are integrated to a degree, but a lot of them still practice their language and their tradition. It's a very fascinating group of people, very awesome group of people. But what was the question again? What was the point I was getting to?
About why any ideas about why they might not have fought?
Yeah, so one of it was the food prevalence. So like everybody had enough food in their territory that it needed to go to someone else's territory, especially the coastal tribes.
Mm-hmm.
And so they just weren't used to defending themselves since they didn't have like that war culture. But also, like my friend Skip, who is he's an interpreter as well. He's Yurok. And he was telling me that like Yurok people didn't know violence to the degree. And so when Europeans were attacking them and killing them, like it was a shock to them because they didn't, murder wasn't something that happened here. And that the whole kind of, and they didn't have laws and like that as colonists know them, because they had like these cultural things. So he said one of the cultural things is, as a child, when you got up, like your prayer or the first thing you thought of was, what good can I do to the community? And so you tried to help, and their leadership was picked on based on who was the most helpful. So there was this very like cooperation was a huge part of their culture, and helping others. And so like people didn't go without in the community, like, because the kids would end up taking care of you or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
What's that sound I hear?
Oh, you can hear that? Yeah, I was like, that's them damn leaf blowers.
Oh, okay. Damn,
they're like doing lawn work now. Yeah, so I'm trying to put it, when I'm not talking, I'm like putting my microphone in mute now. Yeah, lovely sound, puts a lot of nice dust in the air, dirt we can inhale, makes a nice,
it scares away all the birds,
obnoxious sound. Yeah, just gotta love it. Wish we could have it 24/7. How that would help our sleep. Yeah. Bring some of that nice dirty air indoors. Awesome. But so pause. I'm a little brain dead. I guess I need more coffee. I'm trying to like get my brain to start working, ask questions. It's like not quite cooperating. But let's see. Got some stuff we can talk about there. But let's see. Okay, Kyle, Cougars. What do you know about, how much experience do you have with like cats and bobcat, mountain lion, wolf, coyote?
The in that video came out with Kyle, the mountain lion that was the mama mountain lion who was chasing him back and stuff. Yeah. I saw people demonizing mountain lions again and saying that mountain lion was stalking him, and that was not stalking behavior. And I decided to use my platform to speak up against that. And I'm glad I did, even though I ruffled a lot of feathers.
Yeah, I'm glad you did too. Thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it needed to be said. And, and in the video, I explained how the news works. And I wish that more people understood that. And it was weird how, like, that was controversial to some people, but it's not controversial. It's how the news works. Like, we are an ad-based society. We are a commercial-based society. So, like, the news is paid for by the commercials during the commercial break. So the corporations you see during the commercial break are paying for the news. And so if you have 2 million viewers, you can charge a lot more for the news. Okay. And so everybody makes more money. And so the news is not here to educate and inform as much as they're here to make money. And it's a capitalistic society. It's just the reality of it, And so they sensationalize things a lot to get people to watch, because if you're scared or angry or something like that, you're more likely to tune in on the news. So
I wish they'd do both. If they could be wiser and better at their jobs, they could educate and sensationalize at the same time, and it'd be okay.
Yeah, it'd be edutaining. And
yeah.
I think that happens sometimes, but like with Cougars, like it appear, like it's in our genes to be afraid of cats. Like we evolved with cat predators. And that's why there's some evolutionary psychologists that think that there's so many fake cat sightings. Like all over England, there's all these large cat sightings. There's no large cats there. And so a lot of people think it's like genetic memory and stuff like that. And it's pretty fascinating. That's all that goes back to evolutionary psychology. But so when, even though people are dying in cars or dying from a computer falling on them or dying because they got twisted up in the curtains way more often than they are from mountain lions, when someone dies from a mountain lion, it's like worldwide news. And it's because it appeals to our fire ape, the fear inside of our fire ape.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Good. Right, that contrast.
And
yeah.
And so like I'm sick of it. Like let's understand why we have that fear and then be realistic about it.
Or cancer. People killing themselves with lifestyle and bad diet, yet are they scared of that? No. Like, let's all attack and go after mountain lions instead of attacking these bad ideas about diet. How many people die of cancer versus die of like a mountain lion attack? Or as you say, cars versus a mountain lion attack. Why aren't they scared of cars? It's like,
And it's because there's this, I think it's because there's this like deep fear of cats and being predated upon. I mean, the whole and I'm gonna go back to the Kyle video thing, but that whole like beating nature, overcoming nature, subduing nature thing came out of a good place. When you saw your mom or daughter ripped apart by dire wolves, you hated them on a level that you wanted to see every single one of them die. And that's why a lot of the Pleistocene megafauna went extinct, is because we saw them kill our loved ones, and humans don't forget. And so we poisoned them, we killed them, and that was a good thing back then, on a survival status. And they weren't aware of what was happening globally, so everybody just thought they were killing them in their area. And so that whole like conquering nature thing was a survival prescription. But now that there's 7 billion of us, the conquering nature thing is an extinction prescription. And so we have, but we still have that embedded in us, in our culture, and I believe in our psyche, where we're super afraid of things. And I want to help us transform out of that, because we need predators in our ecosystem. When we don't have predators in our ecosystem, things get out of whack, and we end up having more death and suffering, and a loss of ecological functions than when we have apex predators.
And we are predators too. If you want to get rid of predators, you got to get rid of us.
Yeah, and we are predators too, the ultimate predator by far. So I think the video helped. I got a lot of really interesting people reaching out to me, including yourself, over that video.
Oh, sweet. Okay, did you hear that, folks? You heard it here. I'm an interesting person. Yes! Mark that on the calendar. If you disagree, it's right there. Thank you, Griff. I'll pay you later.
You're welcome. And so I encourage people. There's a oh gosh, I can't remember the name of the documentary. It's a documentary about the wolf reintroduction to Yellowstone. It's super short. It's very powerful. I think it's Wolves and Rivers, or if people just Google the Yellowstone wolf introduction or reintroduction.
I'll put a link in the show notes for everybody. Make it easy.
Yeah, it's an amazing short video that helps you understand the impact of apex predators and their removal and their reintroduction.
And for folks, elucidation and education, because a lot of people need it more. Some already know this, I think, but I'll also put some links to videos and articles about the importance of predators in general, not just the wolves. And then there's something that people see a lot about the wolves of Yellowstone that's shorter. But there's something I found from maybe a PBS thing, a lot longer and more interesting, given some background about how, I forgot the guy's name. He was in there studying the Lamar River, why it wasn't functioning as a normal river. And they were wondering what the cause was. Fire, global climate change. They ruled that stuff out because of similar rivers and valleys in the area. Then eventually found out it was the wolves. But that's much more interesting since it's got more context in it. I'll put a link to that too.
Cool. So, I haven't seen that one.
But cool. Yeah, I'll shoot that to you too.
Cool.
But so what are some of the things some people like your ruffled feathers, like who in particular, kind of in general, and why, like at least some of the stuff you're willing to talk about?
Yeah, well, you know what? It's still kind of a wound, so I probably shouldn't call them out or name them. But there are some very strong feelings about predator reintroduction and about the way that the state government handles it in regards to depredation permits and stuff like that. And so it's a kind of an unfolding story right now. And I didn't know any of that when I did the video.
Yeah. Live and learn.
So definitely ruffled some feathers. But you know, I do a lot of education outside of my job. I have my own Facebook page @GriffWild. And and my own YouTube channel. And I
Cool.
realized, and I do stuff on my own platform, but I realized after this experience that I need to do the majority of it on my own platform and less on, whoever I'm working for as platform, because there's a lot, when you're a managing agency, or when you're a government or whatever, you have to try to please everyone, which is an impossible task. It's never going to happen, but you have to make show of it. And it's a really challenging thing for state and federal and county and city, like, managers and politicians. Super difficult. And I don't want to be constrained the same way that they are. And I commend them for trying so hard,
Hmm.
but I want to be educated that people can trust, and to tell you the truth, whether or not you like to hear it, based on whatever the most recent sources that I have access to. And that's the person that I want to be. And so, like, I'm looking forward to one day maybe doing another show again where I don't have constraints, or just doing stuff on my own where I don't have constraints, because it's hard to make everyone happy. And I think that the winning ticket, the touchdown message that doesn't need to be fumbled, is that we all need to be concerned about conservation. And
Hmm.
a lot of us are going to have different approaches, and we're not going to like each other's approaches, but, like, we have to, if we're headed to the same direction, we need to support each other. And one of the good examples of that is, like, hunting. I have friends who are animal rights activist vegans, who don't even believe in killing invasive species,
Hmm.
like rats on islands that are killing the native birds.
Hmm. Wow,
And
that's too bad. Hmm.
yeah, and then I have friends on the other extreme who want to shoot everything.
Oh, yeah.
So
Sad.
and it's because where I live, like, I live in that kind of place, in Humboldt County, where you have extremes, and so I've already have accepted that you're not going to be able to make everybody happy. But, there's people who are animal rights activists who want to do rewilding and restoration. And there's hunters who are, willing to learn how to be conservation hunters. And I think that we need to just kind of come together and agree on things. And it's
Amen.
really, 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 really difficult to do.
Or I know even there's vegetarians or vegans who have cattle ranches,
Yeah.
but they want to do it right. They're not doing this CAFO stuff. They want cows raised in a species appropriate way. They're pastured, they're fed
Yeah.
right, they're taken care of, they have a good life, they have good cow friends and everything, good herd, but they don't eat meat, but they still do that.
Yeah, it's an interesting subject. It's like I definitely took range ecology classes in college, and I was in the range club in college too. And
Hmm.
it's a crazy, the agriculture is a huge part of the reason why we are having biodiversity losses from agriculture, and still to this day, especially when predators are concerned. So I always tell people, because people get really, really mad at me sometimes when I talk about wolf reintroductions or anything like that. And I tell them, I was like, you know what? I have faith in humanity. Like, we're still evolving. And if we can take pictures of Earth from Mars, we can figure out a way to have cows and wolves on the same landscape. Like, we
Yeah,
can do this.
yeah.
It's just
And
going to be a difficult road, but we can get there.
I don't know, like education needs to play a part of it, training people to think in a broader context more logically instead of like, oh, you do this math problem and now you do this math problem and math has nothing to do with English or physics. They're all separate. We need that interdisciplinary thinking.
Yeah.
Then when you look at it, like, okay, maybe wolves kill some cows, but how and why? How many do they actually kill? And what about compared to the cows getting diseases or this and that? I think there's, or what about lightning? Like, don't, I have to look it up, but I think maybe lightning kills as many cows or more than like wolves might, some stuff like that. It's like in the
Yeah.
ballpark
I,
anyway. Why don't we? Why don't
I'll
we?
have to look that up, but I've definitely
I
seen
don't know.
some lightning, some cow deaths from lightning.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm not sure about the actual numbers. I'm just so I'm not saying
Yeah.
that's actually the case. I got to look it up. But that's just something like a kind of comparison we got to consider that I thought of right now. Disease, you know, like if people are worried about wolves, well, how well are you treating your cows so they don't get sick and so they eat right and all this stuff,
Yeah. It's the encouraging thing that I've been noticing in the last 10 years is the younger biologists that are coming out of colleges right now are very interdisciplinary. And I've
Yeah,
been
good.
working with biologists for years and years and years. I was a biological tech,
Hmm.
in my 20s, and worked for Wildlife Conservation Society and did all kinds of different, surveys. And I was just thinking about this recently about some of the biologists I worked for back then. They were brilliant and amazing people, but they really thought about kind of like their project in a vacuum. There was some interdisciplinary stuff back then, of course, but like not to the degree that you encounter with young biologists now. They're
Cool.
really on it.
Good.
And I'm super encouraged by that. Super encouraged, because they don't just come out thinking about salmon, or they don't just come out thinking about Swainson's hawks or spotted owls. They come out thinking about ecosystems and biodiversity and ecological functions. And so they blow my mind. Some of these, some of the recent graduates that I talk to, that I meet on the trail, or that I know and talk to, like, I'm super encouraged. The thing that worries me is that you have this group of, young biologists that are super in the know, but then everybody else is so distracted with TV and video games and politics that they're not keeping up. And so when you come out with one of the realized ecological topics, recently realized ecological concepts, it's so foreign to the non-biologists that they don't believe you.
Yeah.
And especially with the whole doubting of scientists that's happened in the last 6, 7, 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tragedy. It's horrible. And so that's kind of what my job is as an interpreter. I interpret science for the regular person. So like, I try to break everything. I read scientific studies and I try to break them down into an 8th grade level. And I probably should have told you that at the beginning of the podcast. That's what my job really is.
Live and learn.
Yeah. So
I did that the other day
that's what I
too.
do.
Someone asked, "Explain your diet. What do you mean?" And because of the way I'm used to thinking and how I'm dealing with it on an everyday level, and maybe not having described it to anybody for a while, I start out more abstractly, and then I'm thinking as I go, and then I finally figure out a way to say it really simply. But yeah.
Yeah. I'll remember that for next time. I interpret science data for the non-scientist.
Cool. So on the cougar thing, the mountain lion and Kyle, and I was glad the way Kyle did it too. The way it's presented by the media at first, it's like, man, Kyle, is he a jerk? What the hell? But thankfully, you interviewed him. He's making a big deal of it. So Kyle rocks. Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah, Kyle's cool.
Yeah, but I like the way he's putting blame on himself for it instead of just blaming someone else for your own problem. I think that's a problem in our culture too. Not enough introspection. Looking at,
and he's selling shirts, and he's giving the money to Cougar Conservancy and Mountain Lion Foundation.
cool.
So people can buy his shirts at the Cougar Guy. I think the CougarGuy.com.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And you can buy a shirt, and then the money is going towards the Mountain Lion Foundation and Cougar Conservancy.
And doesn't he have like a Instagram channel or something with the Cougar Guy now? Some things like that. Internet.
Yeah.
Cool. But so yeah, and I'll put a link to some of that too. Some of these different videos and articles. What he did originally, your interview with him, some other things. Put it in the show notes so people can look it up. But
Cool.
so can you tell us about that story and mountain lions and how he handled it and things like that?
Well, when in the very, very rare case that you are confronted with a mountain lion, there's a lot of different advice, and I go by based on what the biologists that I know have told me.
Mm-hmm.
And I've only seen a mountain lion up close in real life one time, and it quickly ran away from me. I've seen him at a distance and from a car, but only one time was I in the creek with one, and it ran from me, and it was an amazing moment. But
how close was it?
Probably like 50 feet, 40 feet.
Wow. Who saw who
Definitely.
first?
When I looked at it, it was already looking at me, so I think it like saw me coming or heard me coming.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing strain surveys, so I was doing it's called habitat typing. So I'm like looking at the quality of the creek for habitat value. And there's a mountain lion in the middle of it. So I got to put that in my notes because you have to say everything you see, and I'm like, mountain lion. I felt cool that day.
And you were alone?
Yeah, I was alone because back then, in the early '90s, we used to do that alone. But no one does that alone anymore. But I got to do it alone back then. I'm really glad too, because I had my most magical moments were alone.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, definitely, because it's like quieter, and so you get closer to things. But like mountain lions.
Yeah.
But the mountain lion wasn't stalking him in that viral video.
How do you know?
She was trying. It's escorting behavior, and mountain lions are ambush predators. So like I said in the video that I did, predators don't have ambulances to call, and they don't have hospitals to go to, and they instinctively know that if they get injured, they're done. You have to be an Olympic athlete to be a predator. Once you are compromised, you are done. Unless you're like a chimpanzee, some kind of primate, or a wolf maybe. But solitary hunters like mountain lions, they can't afford to be injured. And so they attack from an ambush perspective. They run really fast. They deliver a killing bite. They don't fight things. They don't confront things and be like, all right, deer, let's go. Let's fight, deer.
Yeah.
It's like they're not doing that. They're coming up from behind. They're pouncing. They're trying to kill fast. They're biting to the neck. And so there's another type of behavior that most people don't know, and it's called escorting. And coyotes do it, wolves do it, mountain lions do it, and I wouldn't be surprised if bears do it, although I have no evidence. But what they do is when they have babies nearby, they will confront you, and the idea is to get you to back away and head back the direction you came. And that's what she did to him. So she was turning to the side, making herself look big. So like a mountain lion would never turn to the side and make themselves look big to a prey item. Okay. She was hissing and false charging, which is something you would never do to a prey item. Like they don't scare their prey to death. They scare away other predators. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, and so when the stalking thing came out there, I was just like, come on, like stop it. Like we don't have to keep people stupid to have them be interested in this video. This is a very interesting video. Yeah. This could be interesting from the see what's really happening, because that was rare footage. We didn't. I mean, I don't know if that kind of footage even existed before.
Wow.
And so not to that degree where like it was obviously a mother and she was false charging, and she escorted him away, and people were like, well, she escorted him really far. That's not really far in mountain lion. That's really far in human, but that's not really far in mountain lion. That's like 2 minutes, 1 minute, everybody's like, well, she escorted him really far. That ain't really far. She's got great hearing. She's got great nose. She knows what's in her territory. She wasn't getting really far away from.
How big is her territory?
Well, with females, it could be 25 to 70 miles, and males it could be from 50 to 270 miles.
Well,
square miles.
So
like,
what do you think? He was escorted for like half a mile, or?
No, not even that. Not even probably an eighth of a mile.
Wow, yeah, eighth of a mile compared to 200 or 70. It's like, not much.
No. So she just kind of like escorted him away, and you could see videos of wolves escorting grizzly bears away. You can, like in Golden Gate National Park in San Francisco, there's often wolves escorting people and their dogs away. So this is just escorting. I got escorted away. I got escorted away by a coyote in Death Valley when I was solo backpacking. I had I woke up in the morning. This is a cool story. I woke up in the morning. I had just got my heart broke, and so I was in love and got my heart broke, and so I was like, I need to go for a long solo backpacking trip in Death Valley. So I went out there, and I was wrapping it up. It was the last night, and I was backpacking out, and I was only like a mile or two from where I parked my car, and so I was like, I'll just sleep here one more night, so I don't have to drive in the middle of the night. So I found this cool canyon, and I pitched my tent, and I woke up, and I looked out on I had a screen, and I looked out the screen, and there was this coyote sniffing around,
cool.
right around my tent.
Wow.
So I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to scare the shit out of it now. And I unzipped my tent, and it just kept circling,
wow.
Sniffing, snorkeling, glancing
Cool.
at me, sniffing, scratching around, just like acting really indifferent.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Like
Huh.
almost like it came with me, like I brought the coyote,
Yeah.
it was
Wow.
my dog.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, it'll go away as soon as I strike up, this jet boil and make some coffee. Nope. Stuck
Hmm.
around the whole time, sniffing around, scratching around.
Cool.
I started talking to it, and so
Huh.
I was like in my 20s at the time, and I was kind of hippy dippy. So I was like, this coyote was sent by the Great Spirit, and it's here to make me feel better. And so I'll just talk to it. So I started telling it about my broken heart story, and loaded my backpack up, and I was like, well, bye, coyote. And I started walking, and it followed me. So I
Hmm.
continued to tell all my woes and my problems,
Hmm.
and got into my car and really believed that I had this like spiritual wildlife experience. And you know what? If I had believed that for the rest of my life, that'd have been wonderful. So if you have experiences like that, just go ahead and believe that they were like sent by God or whatever. Go ahead. It's perfectly fine. But then later on in college, I learned about escorting behavior and realized that's what was happening.
Huh.
The coyote had a den somewhere and was like, okay, human, time for you to go.
Hmm.
It's early morning. Yep, make that coffee, load up your backpack here, let me see you to your car. And it walked me almost all the way back to my car. And then it turned around and left.
Hmm.
And it was a long time before I learned about escorting behavior. And it was still magical just because now I know the
Amazing.
it was still a magical experience.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. But I'll try to find some stuff on that too. Put it in the show notes for people. But
yeah, it's an important concept, and that's what I wanted people to know about Kyle's videos. That was escorting behavior, and that yes, Kyle did everything right. And every time he tried to bend down and pick up a rock is when that mountain lion would charge, and so of course he was scared.
mm-hmm.
I don't know if I would have done any better or any worse in Kyle's position.
In that situation,
I probably would have done.
Until you're in it,
until
we're in it, we don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know. And he had thought they were bobcats. He'd filmed bobcats up there before. I saw his video of bobcats.
Oh, cool.
So he thought those two little mountain lion cubs were bobcats, and he had filmed bobcats right in that very area. The previous 6 months ago or whatever. So he thought it was happening again. And then you see the video. The mountain lion looks like she came out of nowhere, like she was beamed from the Enterprise, and so then that happened, and he did everything right. I mean, he got a rock up as soon as he could, and when he threw the rock, that ended it. But and people are like, well, he didn't have to videotape it. Well, I'm really glad he did videotape it.
Yeah,
I'm grateful that he videotaped the whole thing. It was awesome for our collective education.
Yeah, and please aim for the rear if you throw a rock. Don't aim for its head, please.
Yeah, aim for its. Yeah,
it's got kids to feed. That's one thing. If some people kill a coyote or wolf or mountain lion in a situation like that or bobcat, well, then you're killing the kids too. And what are the consequences?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, you're right, and I say the same thing with outdoor cats. It's like I love cats. My best friend was a cat, but outdoor cats, they kill birds in the spring, and so that means that there's 3 or 4 babies or 5 babies back slowly starving in the nest because your cat killed their mom. And so if you're not going to keep your cat indoors all the time, at least keep it indoors during the nesting season, please. Cats are the biggest cause of songbird decline right now, besides up there with habitat loss.
And windows.
And
windows are a big thing too.
Windows are big too. Not as bad as cats, but they're up there.
And dogs are a problem with wildlife too. People are always trying to demonize cats. Dogs too, folks. Look it up. Hello.
Yeah. Especially right now in the Bay Area, we have a distemper outbreak among the wildlife, and and most of the time that comes from people's domestic dogs that weren't vaccinated, and it has devastating effects on the fox community, especially.
Wow, damn. But so we got the babies to deal with, but if people were to kill off some of the bobcats and wolves and coyotes and mountain lions, how would that come back to haunt us? People think, oh, you're killing a mountain lion, it's not going to attack us, but what are the ecological consequences?
Well, usually what happens is that it increases their prey base. So, like, the deer will increase. And it's funny is I teach little kids virtual. I take kids on virtual programs, and I tell them this. I say, you guys solve this riddle for me. How is it that mountain lions are good for deer even though they kill deer? So how are mountain lions good for deer even though they kill deer? And that's my riddle to them. And the answer to it is that it keeps their population in check. And mountain lions don't go out and mountain lions don't go stalk a deer and go, oh, that one only has 4 points on its antler, so I'm going to go for this other one that's got more points on its antlers. Like they're not trying to get the best breeding deer. They're trying to get the weakest, the oldest, the youngest, the sickest. They're going for the deer that is probably on its way out anyways, oftentimes, or babies. So they're taking the bad genes out of the gene pool. They're taking the disease out of the gene pool, and so they're making the gene pool for the deer better. But also, when there's too many foragers, what they'll do is they'll eat all the young trees that are along this is one of the things. So one of the things they do, like that's really pertinent in my area, is when we get too many deer and elk, they eat up all the vegetation along the creeks. And so then when the trees, and usually alder trees and cottonwood trees are the ones that grow on our creek banks, and they aren't long lived. And so they get 80 years old or whatever, and they die. And then because there hasn't been mountain lions for the last 100 years, there's nothing to replace those trees because the deer have browsed everything away. So now the creek gets warmer, the water temperature goes over 65, which then kills all the salmon in there. So then you lose all your salmon, which are not only an ecologically important, keystone species, they're also an economically important species in this area. So, by killing mountain lions, you're ruining our economy. You can make that connection. You're also killing off orca. You can make that connection because less salmon, less orca. We have orca that are starving to death off the West Coast right now because of lack of salmon. So and that's all because the herbivore pressure was too great. And that's kind of what's covered in that movie about the reintroduction, that short documentary about the reintroduction of wolves.
Yeah.
Is that like how it increased fish? Like in ecology, everything's connected, and it's so fascinating to me. Like I am blown. My mind is constantly blown studying ecology, and I'll tell you the last thing that blew my mind. So we have spotted owls, which are horribly endangered and most likely, sadly to say, are going to go extinct in the next 20 to 30 years, barring very extreme events. They're gone. I hate to say it, but like I'll be amazed if there's still spotted owls when I'm 125 years old. Not that I plan on living that long, but spotted owls mostly depend on old growth forests, and they depend on a couple voles, and one's called a redback vole and one's called a red tree vole. And these voles eat truffles, and truffles are like mushrooms, but they don't make airborne spores. They make spores, and they're like underground. So they're like these underground mushrooms that have to be eaten and distributed. Okay, that's how they get around. So the redwood tree vole the red tree vole doesn't go very far out of its territory, but it eats these truffles, and then the spotted owl eats the red tree vole, and the spores from this truffle survive both the digestive tract of the vole and the spotted owl. And so the spotted owl ends up shitting out or throwing up, via pellets, the spore of these truffles all over the forest, which then provides the food for their main prey item.
Interesting. Wow.
So that's fascinating. It's like, so the spotted owl is basically creating its own habitat. And there's so many examples of that, of like how animals are creating their own habitat, like a bear pooping out berry seeds.
Or we can consider it the truffle creates its own habitat by using the owl.
Awesome. Yes, that's even cooler. Yeah, so that's even cooler. The truffle is creating its own habitat. So that's interesting. That's an interesting way to put. I'm sorry. I'm thinking about doing this program about what I just told you, and now I think I'm going to tell it from the truffle perspective.
Yay! I did it. I actually did something smart for a change. My one smart thing for the year. Whoa!
See how the truffle uses the vole and the spotted owl to do its bidding?
And it used me too. Look at that.
Yeah. So everything's connected to everything, you know, and it's like the more we can make those connections, the cooler it is. And
Yeah.
that's why I love the work of Doug Ptolemy, and everybody should read Nature's Best Hope by Doug Ptolemy. If I was a billionaire, if I was Jeff Bezos, I would pay everybody to read that book. And
Cool.
because that book really can make, it's called Nature's Best Hope. And it really is Nature's Best Hope. Doug Ptolemy, his work is every bit as important as Rachel Carson's and John Muir's. Yeah, I said it. And I totally stand by that statement. And I will continue to stand by that statement. Doug Ptolemy's work is the, you know, he's the E.O. Wilson. He's up there, and his work is amazing. And he talks about how we can create habitat and reconnect ecological functions in our very urbanized and suburbanized spaces. Nature's Best Hope. Everybody should read it. If you care about wildlife or nature at all, read his book.
Cool.
Nature's Best Hope.
I'll put it in the show notes, and I'll look at it too. But yeah, it's like the owl thing's a good example, and that comes up with us. There's people need to learn us more in our self-interest for each of us in our species to do some things like that. The diversity thing, because how it all comes around. Like people, oh, a snake, kill it. I get sick of that, and I have to fight that. Educate people about the importance of snakes, and about coyotes, and you get rid of coyotes and snakes and some animals like that, then what you're really doing is selecting for rodents. In other words, you're selecting for disease and the possibility of plagues. Do you want coyotes and snakes, or do you want the Black Plague? That's really the question.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's an important connection, and I hope more and more people get it. And you know, right now there's so many things distracting everybody that it's hard to get the conservation messages out. And recently a TV talk show host reached out to me, and because of the Mountain video, and said, you know, what's your mission? And I said, I'm trying to teach people about ecology. I'm trying to teach people about wildlife conservation. I'll do whatever I need to do, because I'll be as crazy as I'll dance. I'll be crazy. I'll do whatever I need to do, because it's hard to compete with all the entertainment that's going on today. Like, people aren't going home and reading books and educating themselves, because, you know, we're humans, and we're evolved to save energy, and so we'll pick the lazy way, you know, the path of least resistance 9 out of 10 times or whatever. And so it's way easier for people to jump on social media and scroll through and get, consecutive bouts of instant gratification, rather than read a book called, you know, The Ecology of Mushrooms in the Redwoods. So, and so, like, for those of us who care about the earth, like, we have to be relevant and we have to be entertaining, more now than ever, because people aren't going to sit down and listen to anything that's going to make them feel guilty or bad or hopeless. Like, hopeless doesn't sell. Like, the news, you notice the news doesn't do hopeless. They do anger, and you better do something now, and you better work. You know, they don't do like, oh, it's too late. But I feel like in environmental education, and when we talk about the environment, a lot of people do like, oh, it's too late. And then people are like, well, then why bother and feel bad? And it's not too late. Nature is going to win. We're not fighting to save nature. We're fighting to save ourselves. And so, you know, we need, as environmental educators, we need to be urgent, we need to be relevant, and we need to be edutaining. And because of what we have to compete with today. And I think that 50 years ago, that would have been inappropriate. But I think today, it's not only appropriate, it's there's no choice. You're the only people who are going to listen to your boring education about ecology are the choir, the people who already know.
Well,
and that's not who we.
I think there's actually.
Yeah, it's not.
We need some of the. I mean, of course, to everyone, you want some shorter, entertaining things and some longer things. You want like some things to get people's interest or to learn. They need teasers, something entertaining, something short. But there's actually
Mm-hmm.
more of a market for some things than some people might think. Like in reading about some stuff for like marketing and businesses, I think the articles that get the most attention or that people really dig, like look at more, actually have more like 2,000 words rather than 200 or something. And then like Joe Rogan, his podcast, people were telling him when he was starting, oh, you got to have it half an hour. No one listens to anything long anymore. You can't go for 3 hours. You got to go for like 15 minutes or 30 minutes. He's like, no, I don't give a squat. I'm having long, full conversations as human beings do. And look how popular his podcast is. 3 hours.
There's there's definitely exceptions. And then once you get people curious, like, if you get a blast of, you hear about escorting behavior and you're like, whoa, that's different. Now you're willing to sit down and watch a 2-hour documentary. So there is that.
Or like little kids, they learn about dinosaurs. Look at all the time they spend reading about it and watching videos.
I still do that with dinosaurs.
Yeah.
That's another thing I've always been into is dinosaurs. Yeah, dinosaurs are so fascinating.
Yeah.
And it's a great time to be alive because, we are technology and the instruments we have now are really being able to learn some stuff. And another thing I tell all the kids I talk to every week, during these virtual field trips is like, there really are no experts when it comes to ecology. There still are no experts. Like there's still some very, very common backyard birds that we don't know. We don't know what they're feeding their babies. We don't know how often they feed their babies. We don't know if the male or female is taking care of them. We don't know if they're monogamous.
Oh, yeah.
We don't know the life histories of some of our most common backyard birds. And we're still discovering species all the time. I just watched this webinar, this guy who studies leaf miner insects, and he discovered 5 new leaf miner insects in his front yard in Pennsylvania.
Wow.
And he's discovered like over 200 or something like that already. But
wow.
It's like we're still discovering new species of big animals. They just discovered new species of gibbons. They just discovered 2 new species of gliders in Australia. We discovered a new species of flying squirrel in our park 3 years ago in California. So it's like there are no experts. We are so far from knowing how our ecosystems function. And we've made it even more precarious and unpredictable by all the invasive species that we've introduced.
Oh, yeah.
So ecology is going to be an unfolding investigation, mystery, adventure forever.
Yeah.
We're not ever going to know. We're never going to be able to close the box.
That's one good thing about biology and ecology as opposed to like calculus. I love math. I have a degree in math. I know calculus, but as I always say, no, calculus is not difficult. Calculus is not complex. It's easy. Biology is complex. Calculus doesn't adapt. Your equations never change and adapt and modify. In biology, they change and adapt and modify.
Yeah. Yeah, I just did a video about how you could study one little tiny, 3x3 plot for the rest of your life and still not be an expert on it.
True.
And
you just got to learn
it's
the
because
patience.
of phonology.
Sorry.
It changes over time. A bird can fly over and poop out a seed. Now you got a new plant. That plant could be allelopathic, meaning that it poisons the soil to inhibit the growth of other plants. You could have, a fungus that grows in there, changes the soil chemistry. You can have a fire, and
True.
So it's like you're never gonna know. You're never gonna know everything that there is to know.
And then people need to do more research on the fragmentation that humans are causing to a lot of environments.
Yes, and that's another big concern and interest of mine is habitat fragmentation.
And can you tell folks what fragmentation is? What do we mean by that?
So it's like you have we'll say a 10-acre parcel, and you have a bunch of little box turtles on it or whatever. And then you end up putting your house on one side of it, and then a basketball court over here, and then you put a swimming pool over here, and then you put a bunch of non-native plants that don't have any bugs on them over here. And so pretty soon all you have is like little, eighths of an acre wildlands for your box turtles to live. And say like they can't go from one little tiny island of habitat to another one to mate, because you got 2 pit bulls that will kill them if they go out into the open. And so your box turtles, you have box turtles in those little tiny parts of your yard, but over years they inbred and inbred and inbred until they're weak in genetics and they die of diseases, and then they're extinct everywhere. Even though you had plenty of box turtles within your 10 acres, they could have bred and been healthy forever. They couldn't reach each other because they were in these fragmented habitats. So I kind of look at it as like animals around here. It's like the lava game when you're a little kid and you like jump from your couch to your table because you can't touch the carpet because that's hot lava. So the lava game. So like fragmented habitat for animals is like they're playing the lava game, because in between the habitat, in between the couch and in between the table is freeways and agricultural fields and suburbs. And, if you're not a bird and you can't fly from one fragmented habitat to the other, you're screwed. So salamanders, snakes, anything that, it's got to crawl there ain't going to make it. And that's what we're seeing with our mountain lions in Southern California, especially, is we have a P22. We have a mountain lion stuck in Griffith Park, no relation. Griffith Park's a 7-mile square park. It's much smaller than a male mountain lion's habitat, but he's stuck there. He like went through Hollywood Hills right past George Clooney's house to get to this little park, but he's kind of trapped there now because if he leaves, he's going to get hit by a car, and he somehow knows this because the other mountain lions that are on these other fragmented habitats, they keep getting hit by cars and dying.
Yeah.
So it's like the lava game, and that's what fragmented habitat has done. I think the most important work right now that we can engage in is to become corridors, to connect these fragmented habitats with corridors. And sometimes the only corridors that are available are right through our towns. And that's why people should read Nature's Best Hope by Doug Ptolemy, because he tells you how to do that, by planting native plants. And your neighborhood could become a migration corridor for monarchs or for many of the other migratory species, or maybe even, like squirrels could set up fiefdoms, between you and 5 neighbors' yards. So there's things we can do that we're going to have to do if we want to have our nature. And one of them is to connect to habitat fragments.
So it used to be all nature was interconnected and animals could move around and therefore spread the genes and have genetic diversity. But the context, ecological context that's happened for millions of years has all of a sudden suddenly changed in some ways, in some places. And so some of the conditions on which animals need to survive and be healthy and genetically healthy have been destroyed with this fragmentation.
And it's like, and if it's not genes, it's something else. Like either they're going to breed themselves out, or if you're in a 10 mile by 10 mile fragment and then a wildfire comes through, and there hasn't been any prescribed fires, any cultural burnings, you have a really high fuel load, and so you have this devastating fire. Like the snakes and lizards aren't going to survive. Like historically, they could have just crawled down 3 inches down into a gopher hole and survived a fire, but now they can't. And so when you're on this fragmented habitat that has high fuel buildup, you're dust if a fire comes through. You're done.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's kind of like how these like mismanagement practices are like meeting each other in this perfect storm of extirpation and extinction.
And we got to realize that can happen to us too. I know,
and
we think we're all awesome and we got this advanced technology, but technology is nothing if it's not helping us survive in following the laws of nature. Just going to be to our detriment, just like a lot of Americans are sick, have chronic diseases, depression stuff, and it's because the technology needs to be used and thought of more. That's another weird thing where we need interdisciplinary thinking. It's great, we have all this stuff, but okay, how does it help us serve human life, human biology, human ecology? We need that broader perspective to come
Yeah.
into play instead of, oh, this is so cool. Hey, I can play a game or whatever.
Yeah, and COVID hasn't helped that, has it? It's like,
Yeah, no, yeah.
now people are stuck inside, double downing, doing double downing on and on technology. And I see it in my job. Like, I'm a nature guide, and I do everything virtually now,
Mm-hmm.
and it's weird. It's
Agreed.
not as bad. It's not as bad as I thought it would have been, because people are still able to get some awe-inspiring experiences even virtually. But I'm hoping that I'm planting the seeds for curiosity, and that people will want to get outside and explore with their families as soon as they can.
But yeah, and then I think one lesson we should be learning from COVID, government officials, city planners should be learning. It's like, whoa, snap! It's like, okay, we're stuck indoors where we can't get vitamin D, and we're not as healthy. We're moving around, more domestic abuse. Whoa, it's because of the way we designed our cities. It's our human-built structures and how they're done. We need to change that. If we have wildlife corridors, hey, we're animals, we're wildlife too. That'll help us. We have a place to get out. You can make videos. People could watch them outdoors, do some of the same stuff. If we had more wild areas, like, sometimes people are required now, at least some people are learning, oh, you build a subdivision, then you have to build some drainage area, some storage for rain. Okay, well, what about requiring like a little plot of forest on every block, or a natural, not just a playground park, but a natural park in every subdivision or something, or some kind of food forest, a place for a local garden. I think we need to be doing a lot more of that too.
Yeah, and the designers and planners are there with that kind of stuff. It's just going to take the will of city officials and county officials to make it happen.
True. Yeah. Same thing with zoos. Some zoos are horrible. They used to be bad, but with some people learning about species appropriate diet, lifestyle, some zoos have totally changed, put it into practice, gotten a lot better.
Yeah.
So, but what can you tell folks about kind of return to Kyle and the Cougar? If people come across like a mountain lion, what are some of the things they should do?
People always say don't maintain eye contact, and I say make sure the mountain lion knows that you can see it, because that's what they don't want. They don't want their prey to see them. So if they know that you can see them, you've already foiled 50% of their plan.
That's like a criminal too. I've heard about that same thing. Like if you're somewhere, you look at someone, they know you've ID'd them, they're going to be less likely to commit a crime against you.
Yeah. Make sure the mountain lion knows you can see it, and then you want to think about your house cat. Whatever makes your house cat play with you is what you don't want to do with the mountain lion. So don't run. No fast movements. Make yourself big. If there's more than one of you get the biggest person, stand out front and make yourself look big and yell. And then the smaller person, get behind the big person and drop down as fast as possible and grab a rock, and then throw it at the rear of the mountain lion, or even just right in front of it, because they trip out on our ability to throw things. And so that'll help. If you are worried about it, it's always better to overdo it and feel safe than underdo it and spend your time out in nature worrying about stuff. So like I always tell people, take bear spray. You'll 99.99999% of the time you'll never need it. And if you do need it, it will be because of someone's dog or a crazy person. It won't be because of a mountain lion.
True.
But at least you'll feel better.
Yeah.
And so like I carry bear spray with me because I live way out in the woods where people dump their dogs. And this is like marijuana producing mecca of the planet. And sometimes what I consider bad people will tie up dogs just to be bark dogs.
Damn.
And then they don't need them anymore, and they just let them go. And so like I've already encountered 2 of those dogs in the last 6 months. And both of them were unfriendly.
Hmm.
And so I carry pepper spray for that reason. So, but pepper spray works on everything else. Everything.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to be pepper sprayed. Nothing wants to be.
Yeah.
So, and then also an air horn works really well. And so you can get a little air horn, loud sounds, but you never want to run. And if the mountain lion is doing what she was doing to Kyle, like false charging and stuff, she wants you to get away. So you can walk away, but you want to walk away facing her.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if there's two of you, one of you wants to get rocks, but you definitely want to get out of their territory.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they're being that aggressive, that means they have babies.
Cool. Or one big thing is just don't go out alone much. Go out with someone else, and make sure you're looking around, not sticking on your cell phone. Learn to observe your environment, because that'll help you be a better driver, help you avoid criminals. It's good training in mindfulness and consciousness beyond just that situation. And if you're not looking around, you can't enjoy nature. Look around, observe, identify, and be out with other people.
And I also tell people, if you do get attacked by a mountain lion, you're probably not going to see it coming.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'll probably feel it on you. The last attack we had here, it was a man and a woman, older man and woman, like in their 60s, and and what happens is that when people get a depredation permit, they kill a mountain lion that knew its territory. And so then its territory gets invaded by a bunch of mountain lions, younger mountain lions. Mm-hmm. And they don't understand the territory, and they often aren't great hunters, especially if they were the babies of the mountain lion you killed. Oh, yeah. And they weren't done being raised. Like, they're going to go for the easiest prey, which oftentimes is your dog or your cat or your sheep. And so if you want to keep the livestock predation down, then don't kill mountain lions, because killing mountain lions will actually increase your predation. Mm-hmm. And so the mountain lion that attacked this couple was a young mountain lion. There's actually two young mountain lions, and where they probably still should have been with their mom. So their mom was probably killed. And it jumped on the man, and then the woman took out a pin and stabbed the mountain lion over and over again until it let go. And so that's what I tell people. If you get attacked by a mountain lion, chances are you won't know it until you've been attacked, because they're ambush predators. Yeah. If they're letting you see them, then they don't really want to attack you. They want you to leave. If they want to eat you, you won't see it coming until they're on your back. And in that case, fight. Mm-hmm. Do not play dead, because you will soon really be dead. Mm-hmm. You want to fight, because mountain lions, like I said earlier, they need to be Olympic athletes. And they're not trying to get injured. And so if they think that they're going to get injured fighting you, they're going to leave you alone.
Yeah. And then I like the point you make for wolves, coyotes, bobcats, mountain lions. A lot of predators, a reason they attack is not because of the nature of the thing. It's because of what people have done. So people might kill some wolves, but you're killing some adults who've got the wisdom and who would otherwise train the young to avoid people. The young don't know better. Yeah. They're moving around. And so the ultimate reason it's happening is because of decisions, some bad decisions some people are making, some things not informed by biology, ecology, the way things really work, the nature of things. It's just, there's something, let me kill it. So if you do get attacked by a mountain lion, ultimately it's like you could have some person to blame for it.
And what's funny is that people think that ranchers are always the ones that are anti-predators, but really a lot of what we know about predator ecology now is coming from ranchers.
Huh, cool.
And so, here's a Wilson's warbler right in front of me.
Oh, wow.
So I just watched this interview with on Mountain Lion Foundation's YouTube channel of this rancher who, she's the third generation rancher on her land. And she was talking about how when her neighbor killed the dominant mountain lion, how they suddenly got attacks. Wow. They started losing livestock because the mountain lion that was there knew its territory and knew not to go around the humans and where the humans were. And so as soon as someone killed them, so she was saying, like, you could have a big ranch, but it's not going to be as big as the mountain lions territory. So you can't manage each ranch. You have to manage for the mountain lions territory.
Hmm.
And so, so everybody who lives in that area has to be on the same page with how we're managing our predators,
Mm-hmm.
which is a big, huge ask. But we know that that's what should have been done a long time ago. Like coyotes are the best story. And like, I'm really starting to love coyotes the more I learn about them.
Cool.
I just saw one yesterday in my front yard.
Nice.
Which is not a big, I live across the street from a wilderness area. I don't have any neighbors for 5 miles. So it's like not unusual for me to see wildlife, but like I was especially thrilled to see a coyote because coyotes are just amazing. And they used to be, their range used to be really small. It used to be, relative to how it is now. It used to be in the West. And they were kept out of the rest of the United States by wolves, kind of like how black bear were kept out of the redwoods by grizzly bears. And so when we got rid of wolves, we created this opportunity for coyotes, and coyotes started spreading. And then we tried to employ the same method that worked on exterminating the wolves. We tried that on coyotes, but coyotes have a different biology.
Yeah.
So you can't, when you kill the alpha, like even though they're not quote unquote packs like wolves are, coyotes have this other type of community where the dominant male and female are the only ones having puppies in their territory. Other coyotes will live in that territory, but they won't be going into estrus. But once you kill the alpha female, 6 other females in that territory will suddenly go into estrus. So instead of having one dog having 8 puppies a year, you now have 6 dogs having 8 puppies a year. So by shooting the mountain lion, you increased the coyote population by several fold. Now they're not just going after rats and rabbits. Now there is the carrying capacity of the territory has been challenged, and now they're going to come after your sheep, your baby sheep. So you actually, by thinking that you were like pre-managing your population, you actually were asking for predation. And so now coyotes are coast to coast. They're more numerous than ever, in spite of the fact that we're having coyote killing contests all over the nation, and people are killing coyotes and putting them on our fences. And when I drive by that, and when I drive by, a ranch with coyotes on the fence, I just think, gosh, they think that they're warning other coyotes, but really they're just inviting 8 times more than they had in the first place. And it's another exercise in ignorance.
Yeah, it's like very bad unintended consequences. Not some minor thing, but more serious stuff.
Yeah. I hear your mountain lion in the background.
Yeah, my mountain lion's hungry. Little panther, he's black.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, awesome. I take him on walks.
Oh, cool.
And I use a little kitty holster thing and a leash. Because there are other cats around here. I don't want him to get in fights. And then if he gets scared, that way we're together. Although we've had to work on that.
Yeah.
It took a little kind of training, so to speak, experience for him to learn what to do when he gets scared and that it's okay and I'm there. And because at first he'd run away, and then when the thing latch on the end of the leash when you get to the end of the leash, naturally he'd pivot, rotate. So instead of head away, tail towards, he'd be head toward, tail away from me. And then he's in this thing, and of course he backs out, gets out of the kitty holster. So we had to work on that, but that's pretty much taken care of now. So it's pretty cool. If he gets scared now, usually he'll just flatten and look up at me instead of running away and getting out.
Good.
But it's interesting too. It's helped bonding, being around together, going on walks like that. I think we're a lot more connected as like a social group of cats now.
Nice.
And so one thing I know it's the case is that sometimes now that we're predators moving around together, sometimes he won't eat unless I'm there, because we eat
Oh,
together. I
whoa.
mean, that's what cats do, It's like, hey, I'm eating, you're eating, we're together, we're both eating, we're sharing the meal. So I gotta go and sit down on the floor near him for him to eat sometimes.
Wow. That's
Or
kind of cool.
he'll, I'll be there near the food. The food's right there, and he just sits there until I pet him, and it'll eat, but he won't eat until I pet him.
Whoa.
So yeah,
That's
it's
kind of
like,
cool.
yeah, interesting too. I mean, I knew before, but about cats, but um, more evidence about what cats are really like. More evidence against this nonsense about cats being all solitary and um, dismissing you and not caring and all this stuff. It's like they're very social too. But
Nice. Yeah. I got 2 indoor cats.
cool. But now for bobcats, would there be anything different people should do um, to like kind of
You know,
train and
I've
scare
never
away?
heard of
Pardon?
I've never heard of anybody really having problems with bobcats.
Mm-hmm.
Even like I think that uh, there's a bobcat that lives in my friend's farm that's never even attacked their chickens, which is like amazing to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that bobcats are really timid and afraid of people.
Mm-hmm.
They're an animal that I hardly ever see, and I don't even find their tracks a lot. And then I see wildlife cams from the park where there's bobcats, and I'm like, how are those bobcats here and not leaving tracks? And like, how,
Huh.
they're amazing animals. So like bobcats, I don't think will ever be a problem unless one's like in a trap. Up until recently, you could trap them in California, and it was getting out of hand because the pelt market in China was blowing up, and so people suddenly got a renewed interest in trapping out bobcats, which is not good for the ecosystem.
Yeah.
But that was recently outlawed, thank goodness,
Good.
because
Yeah.
that
Again,
was just ridiculous.
that'd be too many rodents and all that stuff in our environment. But
Yeah.
it comes back to haunt us. But cool. So they're pretty. And what? Just 30 pounds or so. They go after mice and rats more. They're not going to go after people. I know some people. That's what some questions I got to answer around here. But will a bobcat attack me? No, they weigh 30 pounds. They're not going to come after you. You're way bigger. You weigh like 4 or 5 times as much. Would you want to attack someone who's like 4 or 5 times your weight? So that'd be like,
Yeah.
if you found someone who's like 500 or 600 pounds, would you want to like mess with them? No.
Yeah, I'd have to Google it, but I can't even remember hearing about a bobcat attack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the only time might be is if they're rabid.
Yeah, or in a trap. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what about dealing with coyotes? What should people do if they see a coyote?
I've never had a bad experience with coyotes. I had one time, me and my friend's 2 dogs. I was walking my friend's 2 dogs, and we're like way up in the Klamath National Forest, and we were in this little valley, and there was like a knoll, like a small hill, and so I walked over to it because I was curious, and then all of a sudden there was like 11 or 12 coyotes that came out of, and they were barking, doing like a barking sound, and me and the dogs just kept walking, and the dogs didn't bark back. They didn't. They kept their tails down. They kept their ears down. They looked ahead. Like whatever the coyotes were saying was pretty intimidating. So I have no idea what the coyotes were saying, but the dogs heard them. And one of the dogs was a pit bull. They didn't want any of that coyote mess. Yeah, it was really interesting. But they didn't charge us. They got close and did the weird barking thing, but that was it.
Interesting. But so yes, a coyote attacks are rare too, and people are rare or non-existent.
Yeah.
So
It's
Go ahead.
I don't know if they're a problem at all, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. And mainly, again,
as far as like attacking.
they're eating mice and rats and squirrels and rabbits. It's a
Yeah.
And fruit, biggest part of their diet. People don't got to worry about them again, where they were like what 30 pounds, 50 pounds. Um,
Yeah.
and again, if we don't kill off the elders, if we play it smart, then um, they're going to be taught as part of their kind of coyote culture to avoid people. But they're going to be around us more if we kill off the elders and the young don't learn good lessons. I think it's some of the same stuff. I think there's some people who actually volunteers who go around kind of training coyotes to avoid people with tennis balls, air horns, stuff like that. Like
I heard about that recently.
Yeah, we must have seen the same thing on Facebook. I think it was, um, or maybe I don't know if you posted it and I got it from you, but I think it was
Maybe
on some coyote page that I saw it.
Oh, probably Project Coyote.
Yeah, maybe it was there. But so that's something people could do. Bang stuff. So we have them around to control mice and all that, and but then they avoid human places more. Yeah, it makes a difference. Even reading some book about owls, I'd have to look it up, but someone was saying when there's owls around his house, then the mice and rats aren't a problem. There'll be some, but they're very controlled. Whereas if he poisons some mice and poisons some owls, that's when he's going to have a problem with the mice and rats.
Yeah.
And I don't remember what numbers it was, if he was during a year or just what the owl might feed its kids, but he was saying something about how he thought, I don't know how he got the numbers, but like an owl can eat like 400 or 500 mice. So they're really picking them things off and really controlling them.
Yeah. We just banned rodenticides here too.
Good.
In California. Yeah, so that's going to really help because they were everywhere. Like there was rodenticides everywhere, and I definitely noticed a reduction in predators just from where I used to live. Like where I grew up as a kid, we had owls, even though it was like pretty urban and suburban. Mm-hmm. We had a lot of owls and we had a lot of amphibians, and now you don't see either one. Like the amphibians are gone. I'm pretty sure it's because of Roundup, because the surfactant, the chemical and Roundup that helped penetrate the cuticle leaf skin was also killing amphibians. We didn't know that until it was too late.
Wow.
And then there used to be owls in my neighborhood, and there's not anymore. And my dad was asking me why, and I was like, probably because all your neighbors are using rat poison. And he's like, oh, and I could tell by the look on his face that he was using rat poison too. Oh. So it's a shame.
Yeah. Again, I think fundamentally goes back to education. Educational system needs to be reformed, and I'm not the only one saying that. People at Johns Hopkins, a lot of other people, it's been said. There was even a documentary on CBS made in the 80s, how we need to improve American education. And again, that'll probably ruffle some feathers too, but it's like, I don't care. I want things to be better. Things aren't good enough. If you get your feathers ruffled by it, well, you're just against improvement and being better and having a better life, loving your kids, loving your grandkids, loving a better society. That's not stuff I'm against.
Yeah.
But better educational system, teaching people to think better about the consequences and get more biologically and ecologically informed. It'd just be to our benefit, knowing stuff like that. And I think seeing cause-effect relationships like that are more on a level that junior high school and high school kids could get and find it valuable, as opposed to some of this stupid DNA stuff. DNA is important, is relevant at a certain level for certain people, but no one in junior high school, unless there's some like super duper genius who's already known biology and ecology, they're not going to get science by studying DNA.
Yeah.
And then in our modern world, they can find that on the internet enough as it is and get exposed and interested in science if it does to them. They don't need it in school. Most people need to learn really how to think better.
Yeah. I know. I often tell people that the other thing, if I was Jeff Bezos, I would pay everybody to take a critical thinking class.
Yeah, yeah, true.
I feel like that'd make a huge difference. That'd make a huge difference in our society.
Yeah, agreed.
You know, it's like so many of us are easily fooled by conspiracy theories, and you know, it's sad. It's like people don't know what to believe anymore, and so they'll believe whoever sounds the most confident, and they don't understand the scientific method, and they don't understand scientific consensus, and so it's weird. It's like the other day I was thinking, you know, I could talk about conservation, you know, why we need to save biodiversity all day long for all the like ecological functions and ecological services. And that doesn't seem to resonate. But I bet you if I said that there was a group of satanic pedophiles that were killing the environment, and we had to stop them by planting native plants, that I could probably get a bunch of people to plant native plants.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the more unbelievable something is, the more people are, you know, apt to believe it. And you know, the less evidence there is, the better.
Yeah.
So like the more emotionally charged, you know, so it's like, or maybe, you know, I could make up a conspiracy that the Russians were trying to make us kill our own environment so that we had another Dust Bowl or something. I don't know. Like maybe that would get people behind conservation.
Yeah, human beings are complicated. Very, very complicated. But yeah, so getting some things right is difficult. Got to get the social aspect dialed in, the independent thought thing, get it to be both true and emotionally powerful and relevant to people's lives. Hell of a lot going on there. That's one thing where it's in the future of education also. All that stuff being figured out, how we could teach better, do education better. That'd be a better part of teacher certification programs. Getting all that stuff dialed in so people in general and children are more interested, seeing what they need, as opposed to some of the stuff that's done now. But yeah, I think one thing, I worked with one kid, tutoring him and his twin brother a long time ago, and one thing that really got him more interested in science was making it real with him, not just doing the stuff that's in books. We did some math, some physics, some chemistry, but in teaching him some physics, you know, the only way I roll is like, okay, look, we're going to know what the hell science is. So we talk about what science really is, and we talked about, to make it relevant, since I knew he was interested in cats, we talked about how to really know how the kind of lifestyle a cat needs, what it should eat. It introduced him to some actual scientific articles when he's in high school about what cats should eat and why, looking at what species is appropriate. And he actually gave a presentation to some, in high school in an animal science class, gave a presentation to some vets. And of course, they are taught by food companies that the cat should have a dryer or whatever. And he's disagreeing with them, but he was so well-researched and well-informed that none of them could pin him on anything or make him shut up. He actually, you know, like, put them in their place.
Wow.
So that's more what we need. That kind of thinking. Not so much putting adults in their place when it's appropriate, but, you know, just good thinking in school. Anyway.
Yeah.
But, so, I think my cat needs to eat, and we've been going for a little while. So, still a lot of stuff we could talk about, but you got any last words for folks?
I would just tell folks to that reading Doug Ptolemy's book, Nature's Best Hope,
Cool.
Would be extremely helpful, and that I do live videos on Facebook at Griff Wild. So if you or you can just put in John Griff Griffith, and also on the Humboldt Redwood State Park page, I do live Facebook's there, Facebook Live's there. That's where the Mountain Lion Facebook Live was, and I have a YouTube channel. Just put in John Griffith, and my YouTube channel will pop up.
Cool. And I'll put links in the show notes for people. Make it easy. Find your stuff. Get in touch if they want. So, cool. And then get outdoors, everybody.
Get outside.
That's
Go
where
explore.
it is. Yeah.
That's
All
what I
right.
start to do.
Awesome.
All right. Nice talking to you.
Likewise. Thanks so much for your time. Thanks for the discussion. Appreciate it. So,
Right on.
you have a good one.
All right. You too.
Thank
Bye.
you.